Welcome here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on WakeUpCallDT.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on MixLR.com/WakeUpCallDT, as well as on WakeUpCallDT.com. As I've said before here, very important that you join, bookmark, do whatever you got to do, subscribe to the website. It is free on WakeUpCallDT.com, and of course on Facebook Live. We're here with you as well, Facebook.com/Live Now DT. Got an awesome show set up for you today. Every single day, continue to challenge and continue to push for the best. And every Thursday, I know for sure when it comes to Papa Joe that you get something that you can't find anywhere else, something that is extremely rare, extremely special, and extremely important to me. And people say, people may say to me, why do you have Papa Joe on? What is it about Papa Joe that sticks out? Why bring somebody on like PJ? And I would tell you because he withstands the test of time. I would tell you because he is a great man. He is a person that I respect. He's someone that challenges me. And the idea of having him on the show is all born out of sitting at his dining room table and speaking with him about sports and knowing that he challenged me, that he pushed me, that he made me better, that he made me think, that he made me wonder about stuff, he made me want to learn. And so I choose to have Papa Joe here, not once, because we tried it one time, but not one time, but all the time, every week, when we can, every Thursday. If not, we'll go on Wednesday. If not, we'll go on a Monday or a Tuesday. But I put Papa Joe on the show because he has earned the right to have a place in wherever I can put him and spotlight the fact that I am honored to have a father figure in him. I'm honored to have a friend, a mentor, someone who pushes me in the sports world, someone who pushes me in life, someone who makes me laugh, someone who checks on me, and no matter what's going on in his life, how hard his life may become and what may be bothering him, someone who always finds a way to make you feel special, to make you feel thought of, and to make you feel truly appreciated and important. So, when I have the opportunity to bring someone on and make a segment and make it really, truly important, you should all know by now, but if you don't, those choices are not made lightly, and those choices are not made without really thinking about the character of the person. So inside the Cafe Kubal studios today, I welcome you. MonPazPopcorn.com's What's Poppin' will feature Papa Joe, and for the first time ever, I'll have the Wizard on the show. Not the one from Oz, but the one from basketball. Walt Williams, the Wizard, who played with my favorite player, Damon Stoudemire, and spent over a decade in the NBA, and played for Maryland and averaged almost 30 points a game as a senior, and is the co-author of a book about Len Bias. He'll be joining me in just a little bit at 10:15 a.m. Eastern Time for the first time ever. But before that, I welcome onto the show someone who has more than earned their spot. They earned their spot the day they decided to truly make me something special in their life. They earned a spot in my heart and in my mind and in, everything that matters to me. They earned a spot on this show when I realized that my best conversations, my excitement, my reignition, if my battery is low, came so many times sitting at the table with him. So that is why you sit at the table in the morning on Thursdays on Wake Up Call exclusively with Papa Joe and I, because he has more than earned the right to sit at the table with you and to have a conversation about literally anything. I'd vouch for this man with my life, and I appreciate him with more than I can say. With that being said, I proudly welcome back in 2021 someone who I do not have enough words to say about. Papa Joe. PJ, how are you?
Thank you, Dad. Yeah, those are very, very kind words. Let me apologize to your listeners for me not being on the show last week. I have a severe condition of what we call polyneuropathy, where your nervous system is all jumbled up and your legs don't work, your arms don't work, your hands don't work, your feet don't work, your knees don't work, nothing works. And it's all because of my cancer treatments I've had over the years. So sometimes when I really, really get at it like this, I all the patience of your listeners. And we can be a little controversial as well. I got some good controversy today, Daniel. But maybe too controversial. But that's just the way I see things. But let's go.
Hey, coming from Papa Joe. So I open the floor to you. I've learned from watching the congressional hearings that you can open the floor to people. So I open the floor to you. What would you like to? I'm going to give you the first crack here. What would you like to start talking about?
Oh, geez, I didn't really want to jump into this right off the bat, but I have to do this. I mean, I see things. I've seen things over the years, over 50 years of sports, 60 years of sports. I see things that maybe some people don't see and don't want to comment on, and I have to comment on it. And I looked at the football playoffs, and we saw a couple of fair games. I mean, they weren't that good, but
yeah,
I really slandered Notre Dame over the years because they think they're competitive, but they're not. I mean, they can recruit, but they can't play it with the big boys. It's not working for Brian Kelly. Now, when I was watching that game against Alabama, I watched Notre Dame come blasting out of the tunnel, and here they come running across the field, and I look at Notre Dame, and what do I see? Well, I see a white team. I don't see a white team because they're dressed in white. I see a white team because the players are white. And I'm thinking, I'm looking around the corner. I'm trying to look over someone's head. I'm trying to find where the playmakers are, and I didn't see too many of them. And then, of course, when Alabama comes rolling on, I mean, you got to see a black. So, I mean, this is controversial, and I don't mean to be slanderous at all, but it's obvious, it's very evident why Brian Kelly is not competitive. It's because he doesn't have the right style of athlete. Now, granted, Notre Dame is very difficult to get into. Perhaps maybe the scholastic standards are much higher than they are at Alabama or Florida or wherever. But after watching that game for a quarter, and it was 21-0, you say to yourself, Brian, what aren't you getting here, Brian? You need to start coming to the South, start recruiting some kids, coming to the North, to the West out there in Texas, start recruiting some kids. Sure, there's going to be some problem kids, some edge kids. Everyone can't be just perfect like Notre Dame. Well, perfect doesn't win ball games. And they did not have the potential or the personnel to win that game. And Saban is over there. He's looking. He's waiting to see. He says, "Well, let me see what happens here. They're going to try to ground us. They're big guys. They're going to push us around. They're going to do that. They're going to do that." Well, before you knew it, Mac Jones has got the ball flying all over the place. Devontae Adams is running everywhere. Anyway, that's the way I see it. I hope I don't offend anyone, but if Notre Dame wants to be competitive in the NCAA, they've got to recruit outside of the Midwest and recruit some playmakers. Even playmakers. I tell you, the running back was super. That was a gutty little kid there. But you could see right off the bat at the line of scrimmage, you can see after the first series of plays, before you sit down and have a box of popcorn, it's 14-0, and then 21-0, and then the game is over. That's not very much fun. So I know he's going to try to make excuses. You try and do this, you try and do that. Well, that's okay, Brian. You can say whatever you want, but the proof is in the pudding. Now, when you see Ohio State come to the table, you're going to see an entirely different team. That's because Urban Meyer built that team the way he wanted to, and when he gave it over to Ryan Day, he says, "Listen, these are the kids you've got to have to compete with Clemson, Alabama, and so on, and Oklahoma. These are the kids you got to have." And damn if he didn't go out and get them. So I'm looking forward to the championship game. I think that it's going to be a hell of a game. I don't think there's going to be any domination at all. I mean, Alabama may have a slight advantage on the field because of their speed and their athleticness, but I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a good game. But that's what I want to start with there, bud. Nobody piss anyone off.
Well, we look at some of the things going on here, and you made mention of you made mention of Brian Kelly not having the players to beat Alabama. This is what he said in response to one of the questions asked after the game. He said, quote, "We did not score in the red zone when we had opportunities. We moved the ball into the red zone. We missed a field goal. We had opportunities in the red zones to score where there would be a competitive football game. We didn't make enough plays." This wasn't a matter of getting knocked off the ball or not having enough players to compete against Alabama. This was about making plays. And so, I guess everybody needs to continue to carry this narrative that Notre Dame isn't good enough. Look at the scores of the games that Alabama's played all year, and I think we need to start to change the narrative a little bit. This team was out there competing and having a chance to win, and I'm proud of the way our guys competed. So he says in his quote a direct statement against what you just said, that he doesn't believe that they're lacking players to compete against Alabama, and he also said that we can't look at the narrative that Notre Dame isn't good enough. However, they didn't have the players to beat Alabama, and I don't believe that Notre Dame is good enough. I had no thought whatsoever that Notre Dame was going to win this game. I had no thought whatsoever that a couple of years ago Notre Dame was going to beat Clemson. The reality of it all to me is I don't think Notre Dame's as good as everybody says they are. And if you want to prove me wrong, you can't, because they don't win. And getting into the college football playoff based on the fact that they went 12-0, they played a schedule of teams that looked good on paper. I mean, this year they played the ACC, and outside of Clemson, and there's a couple good teams. Miami can stake a claim, or North Carolina. Everybody lost their bowl game, though. So, I mean, the reality of it to me is this year Notre Dame plays in the ACC. I don't think it's a great schedule. A couple years ago when they made the college football playoff, they beat teams that were supposed to be good. That doesn't translate to they actually are good. I don't care about who's supposed to be good. I got a long line of people I dated that were supposed to be my wife. That didn't happen. So the supposed to be's don't really matter to me. And I think Notre Dame needs to. I don't think it's fair to the country, to college football. I don't think it's fair to sports that Notre Dame continues to get looks, continues to get respect, and continues to get appreciation in spots in the college football playoff because they're a storied program that used to be good. They're not a bad team. They're better than I thought they would be this year. But in the same respect, Notre Dame, to me, in my opinion, gets highly ranked, gets ranked at all, and gets said this, that, and the other because of what Notre Dame was historically, and not because they actually can win a national championship right now.
Well, that's true. I mean, their quarterback is an exceptional young man. Wasn't quite as quick as he should have been on the field, but Notre Dame is flush full of money. We know that. They got tons and tons and tons of cash. But they're going to continue to keep playing this little game that they do. Well, we don't want to be in a conference because we don't want to tie ourselves down. We want to go and play around the country and do this. What do they do? Do they have to come down and play a home and home with Alabama, or home and home with Clemson, or home and home with Oklahoma? No. They're just living a lie is what they're doing. Now, Notre Dame people can fuss at me and say, "Well, Joe, you're wrong. You're this, that, you're racist. You're this." I said, "I'm not. I'm telling you what I saw on the football screen after 5 minutes of play. After 5 minutes of play, the game was over. Nick Saban could have scored 60 points in that game, but he didn't. Then he started running the ball and da-da-da-da-da. So, Notre Dame can say what they want. Kelly can say what they want. If you look at Brian Kelly's a fine man, hell of a coach, a good person, but he needs to get some brothers. That's what he needs. He needs some brothers that can play flat kick ass.
And we look at something that he said, and this really affected me because the College Football Playoff Committee, as I have stated clearly here on the show, I do not agree with them. And I have not agreed with them in a very long time. Now, I do believe that they're right about Alabama being one of the best and Clemson being one of the best. I know Clemson faltered this year, and people will say this and that. But, the reality to me is the College Football Playoff Committee is flawed. They are extremely flawed. They're those people where, you go to get a loan at the bank and, you dated their sister, so you're never going to get it. So, like, I really don't enjoy the college football playoff committee because I don't think it's fair. I know deep down that I have more questions than I have answers, and I don't think anybody really cares to answer my questions. So, to look at the situation now, they asked Brian Kelly about 1, 2, and 3 versus, everybody else. He said, I think, this was his response to it. He said, look, we beat the number 1 team in the country. Now people will say, well, their quarterback wasn't there. Yeah, I would say that. You beat the number 1 team in the country, but when you played them at full go, they kicked your tail. They beat you down. They took you down by multiple touchdowns when they were at a full go. So, yeah, I don't think you can count that. And I want to go to the college football playoff and say, because they asked him, well, what about Notre Dame? Well, they have a really good quality win against the number 1 team in the country at the time. No, they don't. They have an overtime barely beat you to a backup quarterback that's barely played in college football, and that game was in South Bend. It wasn't in Clemson. This isn't a normal year saying, well, Death Valley was really loud, or we had to go on the road. It's really hard to play in South Carolina. No, you almost lost a game at home against a backup quarterback in overtime. That game, to me, was little to nothing. You beat a backup quarterback in an extra period. Wow. Congratulations. If that's the case, then Syracuse should get looks at times. North Carolina should get looks at times. If you did a really fair job against their not best player, congratulations. And then they said, yeah, but you lost to him. Yeah, and what did the committee say? Yeah. Well, they lost at the end of the season. Let's talk about it. Their best win, they also lost to. They evened out. They didn't beat a full go Clemson. They beat a kind of go Clemson. So, and the thing is, you can't even turn around and say, well, they beat them 40-10. They beat them 47-40 in extra time. So, I don't understand the committee leaning on, well, they beat Clemson, and I'm like, yeah, with a backup quarterback at your house, not even on the road, barely in overtime, because, the guy can't pull off the unimaginable. He did a fantastic job, but he didn't get the last play. So to me, I think it's laughable about that with the committee. And then with Ohio State, granted, people are going to fight with me and say, well, Dan, if Ohio State's wasn't good, why did they beat Clemson? Listen, Ohio State, I never said they were a bad team. I never said that Justin Fields was a bad quarterback. I signed his petition to come back. But what I will tell you is that when the committee was asked, why did you choose Ohio State, they said because they won their conference championship, they won undefeated, and they beat 2 ranked teams. Well, Cincinnati, in the same state of Ohio, won their conference championship, went undefeated, but they played more games, and they beat more than 2 ranked teams. So when you tell me that the criteria is such, well, then that criteria worked for Ohio State and didn't work for Cincinnati. So I have beef with the committee saying things and nobody challenges it. And if we challenge it, it doesn't matter. They don't do anything about it. So you got Notre Dame, where their best win is also an embarrassing loss, and their win's not that great because they didn't beat Trevor Lawrence. And then you have Ohio State, who you say, well, they did all these things that Cincinnati did, but we don't care about Cincinnati. We don't even register them. So I hold issue with the committee giving reasoning for things that legitimately, if you break it all down, doesn't make logical sense, either because it helps one team but not another, or in the case of Notre Dame, they're claiming that they had this big old great win, but they also lost to that team, and they lost to that team when their quarterback was playing.
That's true. I mean, everything you're saying is correct. The game, even the rest of the bowl games, they were sort of haphazard. I mean, I didn't watch a lot of games. Of course, I had to watch the Florida game, and I knew right away that they were overmatched right out of the gate. I mean, when you lose 3 All-Americans and half of your team, you're not going to be competitive against a speed team like Oklahoma. And Oklahoma is with Lincoln Riley has come a long way too, because he knows that he's got to have speed to win, and he got some speed to win. So even though the Florida game they were totally overmatched. I mean, it's like playing your junior varsity. I mean, I think Florida only dressed about 60 players, but give credit to Oklahoma. They went in, took care of business, and shut down Florida, and that's what they were supposed to do. Trask was still playing, but he didn't have his weapons out there, but he was still play for a national championship and can say that, listen, we are good enough to play at Alabama or at Clemson. Oklahoma is one of those teams. Texas A&M is one of those teams. Ohio State is definitely one of those teams. Yeah. Ohio State is a very, 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 very good team. I don't think they can match up quite with Alabama, but we're going to find out. The line of scrimmage is extremely important in games like this. That's why I thought Notre Dame would be a little bit more competitive because they had those big old beefy guys up front, But those big old beefy guys up front are too friggin' slow. And you just, if you want an athlete that's 6'4" and 280 pounds and can run a 4.6 and 40, Daniel, he ain't gonna be white. So that's the kind of players that Notre Dame is used to do. I mean, you can bitch at me all you want, and maybe some of your fans will too, but Notre Dame needs to recognize where they are in the country, what they need to do, and how they need to be competitive. If I were Brian Kelly, I would go down and spend a weekend with Nick Saban this winter and say, Nick, Jesus, help me out, will you please? What do I have to do here? I got one of the best programs in the country. I recruit. I do well. My kids pass. And Nick's gonna look right at him and say, "You need to recruit in the South, buddy." And that's probably the end of it. So we have a couple of coaching problems coming up here, and one of them is Florida. I'm very upset to hear about this. There's a lot of talk down here in the local papers at Jacksonville Times Union that Dan Mullen is up for an NFL head coaching job. And I don't want to hear that. His job isn't done in Florida. Just because he comes in, he's done 3 years. I think he's 30-9 or 30-8 or something like that in 3 years. He won the SEC East title this year. He's lost 4 games, and the last 3 he got blown out. So, but there's a lot of talk down here of him going pro. And on top of that, we have the evil empire of Urban Meyer slinking around down here, and they're saying that the Jaguars are looking to tie this guy up. So we got a couple of coaching deals we got to talk about.
We do, and we're going to here at Papa Joe this morning inside of the Cafe Kubal studios on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Cafe Kubal with 5 locations in central and upstate New York. Their newest location on 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, as well as their Syracuse locations of 3501 James Street, 401 South Salina Street, 324 West Water Street, and 208 North Townsend Street. PJ, you bring up Dan Mullen, and I really wanted to get to some stuff that he said. He said, well, you know what? I would have loved to have played the season we were supposed to play with the team that we were supposed to have this year. But unfortunately for COVID, we weren't able to do that. I think it's a pretty special team right now, you know what I mean? When you look back at what we do. I mean, I don't know. I look at the games that we played with the team that we were supposed to have, which was there, were there for a few games this year, I think is what he was trying to say. SEC championship game, we were close to having our team. The Georgia game, we kind of had our team. There were some games in the season where we had our team playing, and there were a bunch that we didn't, just for all the extenuating circumstances that happened. But to me, during the course of the year, I kind of viewed maybe this is wrong. I viewed this game that wasn't the 2020 football team that you saw. I mean, there were about 25 guys missing off the 2020 football team out there tonight. That was kind of like a kickstart for us for the future and the opportunity for young guys to go play. And, even with me, all the coaches, I wanted to make sure. I think you all saw a lot of different guys on the field, us rotate a lot of different players in different situations, and a lot of that was me. Was for me to get to evaluate guys and for us to be able to teach those guys moving forward. That's kind of how I view this game. Not really. I view the last game, the last team, the 2020 team played was 11 days ago. And that was his response after losing to Oklahoma 55-20, Dan Mullen. What are your thoughts on that with him saying, you guys want to talk to me about this game and this team, but this wasn't my team. This wasn't the 2020 team. During this season, I didn't always have my 2020 team. And so, in this game against Oklahoma, we didn't have our team. The last time we had our team was almost 2 weeks ago. What do you think of that?
Well, I think that Dan sometimes can cry a little bit too much. I mean, first of all, you got to recognize that he got his ass whipped, period. I don't care if he's got JV kids out there or not. They were overmatched from the get-go. Oklahoma was too fast and too tough. Florida was not going to win that game. I don't care if Kyle Trask threw for 800 yards. Not going to happen. Sometimes Dan doesn't say the right things, and I chastise him for that. You should have said, look, they had a chance not to play that game, but they brought it up to a vote for the kids. I mean, you're talking about freshmen and sophomores here now that are going to a bowl game to play Oklahoma, and the coaches are saying, well, we don't have to play this game because we're not at full strength. That's not what these kids want to hear. They want to play ball. So they get beat. They wanted to play ball. Yeah. They wanted to get on the field and run around, tackle and catch passes and things. That's what Dan should have said. He should have said, look, we're overmatched, fine, that's okay. We got beat, fine. I looked at a lot of freshmen and sophomores. I got 7 or 8 kids that are wide receivers. They're going to be killers next year. That's what he should have said. And I don't want to see him or hear him making any excuses. And I don't want to hear him saying that he's not going to be leaving the University of Florida because things didn't just go his way the last couple of months of the season. I don't want to hear that. I mean, they need to work just like everyone else, just like Brian Kelly, get back at it in January, come up with a good spring, sign their recruiting class, and go at it. Next year they're going to have an absolutely exciting quarterback in Emory Jones. I've said this before. This kid is dynamite. I mean, he's the opposite of Kyle Trask. Kyle Trask is a big, tall, lumbering guy with a good arm that doesn't move too quick in a pocket. Well, Emory Jones will make him miss about 10 times before he throws a pass. I mean, this guy is really super, and he's really going to light it up. So that's what I need Dan Mullen to say. I'm going to start getting ready for next year. Emory Jones, I wanted to see more out of him. You did. You saw him play. You saw him fit some passes. You saw him run the ball, which he does extremely well. And he's going to merge with these young kids over the spring and be ready to play. So, Coach Mullen needs to finish what he's doing at Florida the first time. He stayed at Florida with Urban Meyer before he went to Mississippi State. Now he's coming back here. He's got to finish the job at Florida. Just winning one SEC title this year doesn't make it. Because the last 3 games he played, they got beat bad. So he needs to go to the drawing board too. He needs to get his kids together. He needs to play. He needs to say the right things. I'm a Gator, true and blue. I mean, there's nothing that Florida can ever do wrong to me on the football field. But he's got to recognize that he needs to step it up too. Everyone needs to step it up. You cannot play with Ohio State and Alabama and Clemson if you don't step it up.
And Dan Mullen also said here, he said, we just went to our 3rd straight New Year's Six bowl game. We played for the SEC championship this year. I think we're headed in the right direction. Can't wait to see the Gator Nation pack the swamp. Hopefully we're healthy enough to pack the swamp. I know all the Gators fans are going to be fired up for the future of this program. The reality that they lost 3 games, they barely lost to Alabama, coming into everything and coming into the bowl game against Oklahoma and not having their full team there. People wanting to talk about, is Florida good? Do they, are they competitive? If you don't see that Florida's trending upward, I mean, I didn't grow up a Florida fan. I'm not, I wasn't watching them every day and whatnot. And I can honestly tell you that from my viewpoint, this team is getting better. From my viewpoint, I think Dan Mullen will have them competing for a national championship. So I just find it difficult, PJ, and I want to get your thoughts on it, being a Gator. How you assess the fact that some people are looking at Dan Mullen saying that he's failing as a coach or he's trending downward?
Well, the people that we talk to on your show here, they're all pretty well knowledgeable with sports, especially football. You got to be able to answer the bell. I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, he needs to step it up. Just because he won a couple of good games and he beat Georgia, that's not the season right there. The season is that he's got to be competitive with the big boys. Now, I can see Florida falling behind next year, Texas A&M, Mississippi, Alabama, Arkansas a little bit, Georgia for sure, maybe even Kentucky. So people are starting to change their programs, and he needs to step it up. You know, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, 8 years ago, 9 years ago, 10 years ago, 11 years ago, 12 years ago, 13 years ago, 14 years ago, 15 years ago, 16 years ago, 17 years ago, 18 years ago, 19 years ago, 20 years ago, 21 years ago, 22 years ago, 23 years ago, 24 years ago, 25 years ago, 26 years ago, 27 years ago, 28 years ago, 29 years ago, 30 years ago, 31 years ago, 32 years ago, 33 years ago, 34 years ago, 35 years ago, 36 years ago, 37 years ago, 38 years ago, 39 years ago, 40 years ago, 41 years ago, 42 years ago, 43 years ago, 44 years ago, 45 years ago, 46 years ago, 47 years a it's fair to say that everyone who's been a rooter for your team, that you sometimes you have a little prejudice. Well, it's okay to have that, but you also have to recognize that you did not compete well enough to win. Why? That's what you have to answer. Why? And you go back and you figure it out.
Yeah, so I think, the reality of it all is that we need to really take a step back with the Dan Mullen situation and understand something. He has to beat Alabama. He has to beat Georgia. He has to beat the LSUs of the world. Ole Miss getting better and whatnot. He's got to beat these teams. This is not a normal go, in the sense of other conferences. I don't think the Pac-12 is as strong as the SEC. I don't think the Big 12 is as strong as the SEC. And you could say, well, Dan, Oklahoma beat them. Yeah, they beat one team. I don't think, and Oklahoma also goes perennially, typically, to the college football playoff and loses miserably. So, or just doesn't play any defense and loses a shootout. So to me, the SEC is better than the Big 12. They're better than the Pac-12. They're better, in my opinion, than the Big 10. And Ohio State's a strong team, but the Big 10 was garbage this year besides, Indiana, Ohio State, and, a little bit of Northwestern. So, and Iowa did some good things here and there, but, I don't see them in a college football playoff anytime soon. So I think, for me, looking at the SEC is better than everybody in the ACC except for Clemson. So I think the reality of it all is the SEC is in a different world, and Dan Mullen is in a different world because he's the head coach there at Florida. And it just comes down to, can he do it? And coaches are given a few years to do it. Can you beat them? He almost beat Nick Saban, and they did a better job than Texas A&M. Jimbo Fisher is, putting himself in good footing because of what they did this year and how they did it and how they should have been in the college football playoff. I believe that completely. So, I think that there is a lot to be said about coaching in college football versus coaching in the SEC. And when you coach in the SEC, your job is to win an SEC championship, but you got to go through Alabama. And, every coach that gets hired in the SEC, it's you got to beat Nick Saban, you got to beat Alabama, you got to vie for a championship. You have to do that. And look at how quickly, even though that's the thing, and even if you do somehow thread the needle and find a way to win, if you're Ed Ogeron, people are looking at you this year after a national championship the year before going, yeah, I don't really know if he's our head coach. So the SEC truly is a place where it is so difficult to win, and when you do, if you lose the next year, they treat you like you're a 4-8 coach every year. That's the SEC. That's what Dan Mullen signed up for. That's what Jimbo Fisher signed up for. That's what all of these people coming in, Mike Leach and Lane Kiffin, signed up for. If you don't beat Alabama, you may lose your job. And even if you win a national championship, if the next year you're not winning a national championship or vying for a national championship, guess what? People forget very quickly, and they'll start treating Ed Ogeron like he's, some guy that walked in 3 days ago that hasn't done anything for them lately. That's the
right.
SEC.
That's true. And our football fans out there are listening to us and debating with us. They should know how difficult it is to go undefeated in any conference.
Yeah.
Left on the SEC. Last year, LSU. This year, Alabama. It is so hard to be competitive, let alone sweep the whole schedule. It's just, that's what makes Nick Saban so good. And Dan Devil Sweetie to some effect. But it's extremely hard to do. Hey, listen, if Florida goes 10-2 next year, I'm happy with it. Because I know they're not going to beat the big teams yet. Not unless something happens. Mullen is a master recruiter, or so is Saban, so is Sweeney. So I want to see the country come together a little bit more. I want to see the conferences branch out a little bit instead of playing some cupcakes. Let's get some football games out there and play. This year, Alabama had to play an SEC schedule. No cupcakes coming in. That's hard to do. And last year, when LSU was going rampant, they played a tough schedule. So I want to be able to see a little bit more equity, and I want to be able to see the other conferences, especially ACC. I think you heard me in a couple of weeks ago say about Mike Norvell. Maybe not next year, but in 2 years, he's going to have a championship team at FSU. So saying all that, all these conference tests have little hotbeds that they talk about. Big 12 with Oklahoma, it looks like they're going to be dominant for quite a number of years. Lincoln Riley is an exceptional coach. For some reason, he gets these quarterbacks that come over there and play, and you can see how fast they play. I mean, geez. It looked like when they were playing Florida, I thought they were playing a JV team. They were fast. But, Dan Mullen's a good guy. He's a good coach. He makes a lot of money, Daniel. He makes a lot of money. He doesn't have to answer the questions like, say, Ed Orgeron did this year. Dan Mullen will never, I don't think, in the near future go 6-4 or 6-5 or something like that. I don't see that happening. But he needs to step it up, just like Ed did last year, and how Nick is doing this year, and how what Dabo Sweeney did 3 years ago.
Yeah.
The whole caveat here is what will Ohio State do this next week with a very, very light schedule, very little practice. His players are not banged up. He's probably going to be at full strength. Some people could say that's really not a fair system. How can we've talked about this for weeks about Ohio State getting in there with 6 wins. That's the power of the Big Ten. And look at Urban Meyer built that Ohio State team again and gave it to Ryan Day. That's what I'm looking forward to the Urban to come down here and take care of the Jaguars.
So, we do have, and you're bringing up a bunch of things, that Papa Joe opening a bunch of doors here on the show today on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. We are going to walk through those doors right after this fast break on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. We have a lot to discuss, so we will be starting first and foremost with the Dan Mullen rumors down there in Gainesville and what you're hearing, and then we'll get into the Urban Meyer rumors for Jacksonville and what you're hearing with that too. Papa Joe joining us from the Sunshine State that right now is warming up in a big old way as we are taking a very close look, and not just the state of Florida, but the nation is paying attention to what's going on with Dan Mullen, what's going on with the Jaguars and Urban Meyer, and where do they go from here. That's all coming up after this fast break where sports meets life on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Dan Mullen, what's going on with the Jaguars and Urban Meyer?
Do you know why? Because we make ice cream. Creamy, rich, flavorful ice cream. Not yogurt or iced milk like some of our competitors. Ice cream. Fresh, by hand, daily. For the calorie conscious, we have something new for you. Our new Carbolite. Same great flavor, creaminess, and texture of our regular ice cream with only 35 calories an ounce. So whether you want an ice cream cake, flying saucer, dasher, carvalanche, hard or soft ice cream, we will satisfy your craving with our fresh, handmade regular or new Carbolite ice cream. Carvel DeWitt. It's what happy tastes like.
Cafe Kubal offers same-day local delivery of our products, offering no delivery charge for Onondaga County. Shop cafekubal.com for fresh roasted coffee beans, cold brew, travel mugs, and all your essential Cafe Kubal needs. Cafe Kubal, coffee for the soul.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant. Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on WakeUpCallDT.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on MixLR.com/WakeUpCallDT. Off the air, PJ and I talking about all this stuff, so we're going to jump and do it on the air on Facebook.com/LiveNowDT, and of course on MixLR.com/WakeUpCallDT. Inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios, get your pumpkin spice chai or whatever your favorite is to warm you up or cool you down from Cafe Kubal. And sometimes in the dead of winter, they still like their iced lattes and all that good stuff. And you can get all of it at Cafe Kubal, including their cold brew in a can. You can get it by the individual cans. You can get them packaged together. So many great things from Cafe Kubal, and 5 locations to give them to you in our community, as well as the mobile cafe and local delivery that'll bring it right to your doorstep. And they will not charge a single penny of a delivery fee if you're in Onondaga County. So make sure you head off to Cafe Kubal today. PJ, Dan Mullen down in Florida, NFL rumors and whatnot. What are you hearing?
A lot of talk. Every day there's an article somewhere, it'd be in a Tallahassee or in Orlando or in Jacksonville, that Dan Mullen is being thought about for an NFL coaching job. Well, it's my opinion that he's certainly capable of doing that. I mean, look at Dan. These guys make a lot of money. I mean, Dan Mullen makes what, $5.5 million a year or something like that. So he goes to pros, he makes $6 million or something like that. I mean, I don't know if you want to get your doors blown off for an extra $500,000. As long as I was in a big conference like the SEC and I got a good job at Florida, I'm going to stay there. But he's a restless guy. He's a little different kind of guy. He's certainly honest. There's no doubt. You never have to guess where he's coming from.
Yeah.
If he says something about the recruitment of the NFL is true, so I'm sure he's been passed over a couple times because he simply said, "I'm happy where I'm at. But maybe somewhere down the road, but not now. I'm happy at Florida. I want to keep winning." Da 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 da. And that's where I am with that. I mean, if we need to hear a lot more, especially out of the Gainesville Sun, which is the newspaper there. We need a lot more statements coming from the Gainesville Sun and the surrounding newspapers saying that, Dan, I'm not a candidate for an NFL coaching job this year. That's all he's got to say. That'll put everyone at peace. Everyone will be happy. The Gators can get ready to go again. So now next year, if he doesn't do what he was supposed to do, and maybe he loses 3 or 4 games again, then maybe there's time for a change. But heck, if they didn't throw Ed Orgeron out this year, they're not going to throw Dan Mullen out either. So I look forward to hearing from Coach Mullen. Coach Mullen likes to. There's the Gator clubs across the state. Every major city has a Gator club, and every year the head coach goes and talks to these Gators clubs. And there's a couple hundred people in each place. So that's what he does, and that's what's required of the coach at Florida. So when I start hearing some things, and there's a squad here too in St. Johns County and St. Augustine where we have a Gator club. So the next time he comes here, I'll probably slime in there and see if I can listen to him talk. But he just needs to say something and say, listen, I'm very flattered, but my work is not done in Florida. I want to continue to compete in the SEC, and I want to compete for a national championship. That's all he's got to say, and everyone will be happy with that. But when it comes to the Urban boy, I'm not so sure about that.
And let's look at that. Urban Meyer in the situation that we're in right now. What are your thoughts on Urban Meyer? The Jacksonville Jaguars, we talk about Black Monday, a lot of things to get into this morning with PJ. We've spoken on, the college football playoff. We've talked about, different players that have sat out, but we have a bigger discussion to have on that. We've spoken on Dan Mullen, but let's go to Jacksonville for a second. Black Monday happened this past Monday, January 4th. Doug Marrone was fired early. The first message that I got, and the person who reported it to me before anybody, because, obviously stuff comes out and then eventually the Jaguars will send an email. Way before the Jaguars sent their official email, I got a Papa Joe text message that said, "Gown," and with 3 exclamation points. He gown. So give me your thoughts on the 23-43 Doug Marrone and the fact that he was let go after having one good season. In the last 3 seasons, I believe he's won 12 games combined, and in his good season, he won 10 in one season as opposed to trying to do it in 3. He had 1 year of being outside of the Super Bowl, and every other year it was awful. And a 23-43 overall record, I think, is pretty clear. Doug Marrone was let go, and he was let go very early on Black Monday. And the rumors are now Urban Meyer, Joe Brady. I believe we've talked about that this week. Joe Brady from the Carolina Panthers, who was also the passing coordinator for LSU when they had Joe Burrow. So your thoughts on what you're hearing of, well, first and foremost, your thoughts on Doug Marrone being fired. Was it overdue? Was it right on time? All of that. So your thoughts on Doug Marrone being fired, and then your thoughts on the rumors that are currently going on and what you're hearing down in Jacksonville.
Well, it's quite obvious that Doug was not going to be kept. I mean, we knew that. All the fans down here knew that. There was simply no possible way that he was going to continue to coach. So when that news hit, that wasn't a surprise to anyone. Right. Doug Marrone is a very nice man. I think he's a good coach. There's a spot for him somewhere else. But him and his entire staff are gone. Now you got a roster that you're sitting with six draft choices in the first 2 rounds or something like that. I mean, this is a very good job in Jacksonville. And if it needs someone like Urban Meyer to come in, fine. Urban's got to do a different deal instead of coming into a college game. Colleges is strictly, you got to play by the rules. You got to go out and recruit. You got to do that. You got to do that. Well, in Jacksonville, in the NFL, everything's already done. All you got to do is you got to put forth a plan. I'm not sure that Urban Meyer has a plan to do that. You got to hire assistant coaches, strength coaches. You got to do all this. You got to do all that. You got an entirely different deal as opposed to college. So I think he's looking at that, and he doesn't know if he wants to work that hard. He's got a big ego, this guy. But I remember him winning a championship with Tim Tebow, and thinking, "Oh, geez, I'm sick. I can't do this." He works the next year. I can't do. Oh, I got to retire. He goes and wins another championship. So he's a real different kind of guy. I remember Mary and I were sitting at one of our favorite restaurants, Sonny's, which is in Florida, which you get good barbecue and chicken and ribs and things like that. And I'm sitting there, and right across the table from me, on the other aisle, was Urban Meyer, his wife, and his 2 daughters. And I'm looking at him, and I say, "Hey, Coach, what's up?" "Hey, good, glad to see you." Well, he has a place here in St. Augustine. Most of the coaches that have good jobs in Florida come straight across the coast from Gainesville straight to St. Augustine, and they buy a condo or something like that just to get away from things. And I thought that was kind of neat, that no one else bothered him. I was the only one that recognized for some reason, but he's a different kind of guy, and I don't know if he wants to work this hard, Daniel, to come up with a staff that's going to be competitive for Jacksonville. I think what he's looking at, Trevor, and he's laying, "Damn, boy, I like to coach that kid." Jeez. So he's got to figure that out. I mean, he's a smart man, that's for sure, and he certainly, if he puts his tentacles out there, he can get all sorts of coaches everywhere. Yeah. First of all, I think you got to have an exceptional teacher for Trevor Lawrence and an offensive coordinator for him. And you got other things all the way down the road. Boy, in saying that, I mean that's a big job. I mean, the Jaguars were a mess. We know that after the last couple of years they've been a mess. Daniel, I watch every single game, whether they were losing or not. And I told myself and I told my son, listen, I can't be a fair weather friend. I watch them when they win. I watch them when they lose. So
yeah,
you got to be able to do that. But I want to be able to see a team that's competitive. And I'm thinking that if someone like Urban Meyer comes in especially with his strong personality, that he can just walk in, set the whole thing up, and be ready to go. I'm looking forward to that. But in saying that, the city is not mine or not the Jaguar fans out there. It's Mr. Khan. And Mr. Khan is interviewing a lot of people. Of course, there's the Rooney Rule. You got to do that Rooney Rule first. So if he comes to Jacksonville, there's going to be an awful lot of publicity. Will go through the roof. Oh my goodness, it'll be extremely popular. Mainly because this is where he spent his 6 years in the First Coast. And I'm thinking to myself, Joe, can he do this?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, well, his health hasn't been good, and when you're in a grinder like Florida and you're trying to win national championships every year, and I wouldn't be surprised if he almost died a couple times. I mean, he just was not a well man. And take that in consideration, and now he's going to get right back into the meat grinder with let's say it's an expansion team that needs to be built from the ground floor up.
Yeah, we see where Jacksonville is at right now and the situation that they're in. They have the number 1 overall pick. They have plenty of draft picks. They have 10. They have 2 picks in the first round, 2 picks in the second round. They have a pick in the third round, and then they have 2 picks in the fourth round. They got a lot of early. They not only have a lot of draft picks, they have a lot of early draft picks, and thanks to trading away Jalen Ramsey and some of this other stuff that went down, they got a bunch of picks in this, which is awesome for Jacksonville and awesome for whatever GM and head coach come in, knowing the situation that they're currently in with the draft picks that they will have and how early these picks are as well. So if they do things right in the draft, maybe they should hire Bill Belichick for a day or a couple days to just have him work there with them on it. But the reality of it all is they have a lot of draft picks to play with, and having that, they have their first-round selection, the Rams' first-round selection, their second-round selection, the Vikings' second-round selection for Ngakoue. Then they have their third round, their fourth round. Then they have the Rams' fourth round, which also came from Ramsey. Then they have a fifth round, a sixth round, and a seventh-round pick in this year's NFL draft. So you look at that. You also look at the fact that, and folks, this is not the first time in the last few years. This has happened more than once. Jacksonville has the largest salary cap to utilize. They have the most salary cap space in the entire nation. They have $74.9 million to use in free agency. The Jets are second with 68.8. The Patriots, believe it or not, with 58.8. Colts with 57.8. Washington with 47.1. Bengals 35.2. Dolphins 26.4. Browns 22.3. Cowboys 21.5. And Chargers rounding out the top 10 in salary cap space 21.3. So from 1 to 10, it's over $50 million in salary cap space that the Jaguars have from them to the Chargers. So you got almost $75 million in cap space. You have 10 picks, a bunch of early ones, 2 first-rounders, 2 second-rounders, and, of course, the overall number 1 pick. This should be an enticing job, albeit the fact that they struggle, albeit that this feels like you said, a franchise that isn't 20, almost 30 years old, but essentially is starting from scratch. Even though that's the situation, you got some young talent, you got some strong guys, you got a great place to bring your family, you got a great beach and scenery to enjoy your life on, you got a fantastically upgraded stadium that's constantly getting things put around it like Daly's Place, you have an owner that cares and knows how to speak and knows how to be a leader and be someone who is clear but also respectful. And then you add into all of that, the salary cap space is the most in the nation, and all those draft picks and everything you got going for you. Even though Jacksonville struggles, to me, it looks like a very enticing job because if you do things the right way, and if you are successful in doing those things and taking those steps, then you could go down as one of the smartest people, and you could be set for life in Jacksonville or be able to go elsewhere. If you use these picks right in the salary cap space right, then you're going to get credit for it if you do it in Jacksonville and you do it right. So I think there's a lot to gain from a team that isn't that good.
Well, for sure. I'm sure that the whole roster will be entirely different by the time we talk about them in the fall. I'm not so sure what Mr. Khan is doing with respect to a general manager. I know he's had a good one there, Trent Lott. I think that he was with San Francisco for a number of years. He certainly is very capable to be the GM and stay there with Jacksonville. I haven't read anything about him leaving or anything. So, when you deal with someone like that or someone coming in who's a general manager or player personnel expert or something like that, is he going to mesh with a high-profile, egotistical guy like Urban Meyer? Now, that's hard. That's very hard. If Meyer wants to come in and be in control, that's one thing. But does he want to be in control of everything, the parking, the hot dogs and hamburgers and things like that? That's not Urban Meyer. All he wants to do is get players to play. And if he's the, quote, coach, personnel director, then he can make his own shot. So Mr. Khan's got a tough decision, not only with a coach, but with a general manager that can work with a coach. Now, the talk down here is that he's already been offered a job. You can't listen to any of that stuff. It's not cut in stone. He just likes to hear himself think. That's what. And I think that he certainly would be an incredible addition. And I think that if he were to come in and coach Jaguars with the potential that they have in the draft and some of the players they already got, like Chark and those guys, he's going to put up a lot of points. And listen, that's what we want in Jacksonville. We want a strong defense. We want to be able to put up some points. We want to be able to 10-6. We want to be 11-5. We want to be able to be competitive and say, listen, we've got to get in the playoffs. In order for us to win a championship, first we got to be competitive to get in the playoffs. And that's what he's thinking, probably to himself. Do I want to take this on? Do I want to take out a job like Jacksonville, which has so much potential? My goodness, 7 picks, and these are not fly-by-night guys. The first 2 rounds, he's going to get some classy players, including Trevor Lawrence. So there's no doubt that Trevor Lawrence is going to go to the Jaguars. There's simply no doubt about that. No one down here is talking about anything different. I don't see that being an issue anywhere. So whoever's going to come in and be the general manager, quote unquote, or personnel player or head coach is going to have a very, very good job in front of him, but a big one.
Yeah, and this is something that really, Jacksonville to me, even though they're losing, I know that it's going to be an uphill climb, but it is enticing if you do things the right way. 2 things that have been brought up. One of them is being stated is not true. That's that Urban Meyer wants $12 million a year. That has been stated as false by Ian Rappaport, who is somebody that typically I would venture to say you can trust what he's talking about here when he brings certain things up. I've seen him as a credible source more than once. So I would tell you that, so looking at that, him saying, the $12 million thing is not relevant and it's false. So that's
Chucky news right there. That's Chucky pay.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. So, there's that coming up. There's also the notion coming up that if Urban Meyer was to become the head coach, he's already assembling a staff. So whether or not he takes the job and whether or not he comes out of coaching retirement, there is the reality that that he is putting a staff together. What are you hearing about the $12 million and its truth or how false it is? And then what are you hearing about the fact that Urban Meyer's putting a staff together just in case?
Well, we've definitely heard he's trying to put a staff together, but I think he's going to be hoodwinked a little bit because he doesn't know how much he can pay his guys. His offensive coordinator, defensive coordinators. These guys make good money too, $2.5–3 million too. So I'm not sure he's ready to do that because he doesn't have the okay to say, okay, I can bring in a defense coordinator for $2 million. I can bring in an offensive coordinator for $2.5 million. The $12 million that was mentioned, very real, very, very real. I didn't hear anything bad about that. I didn't read anything bad about that. That could just be a number out there that maybe his agent put out there just for grins. But if he wants to be with Chucky money, he's going to have to win.
Yeah, that's the reality of it all. Papa Joe, before I let you go, a couple things here that we still have to jump to. We talked about Urban Meyer and Doug Marrone, where the Jaguars go from here. Bowl games. Outside of the college football playoff, do bowl games matter? That's including the New Year's Six. So do the bowl games matter, and should players sit out? What do you think about players sitting out if they're not playing in the college football playoff?
Well, I'll tell you, when the kids opted out, the three All-Americans opted out at Florida, I was pissed. I was really, really pissed. That's not fair to the team, not fair to the college, not fair to the coaches. I mean, I was really pissed about that. I don't think they should have that option. If you go to that school and you gotta finish your term there, which means you gotta play in a bowl game. You're not going to get hurt. Come on now, the chances of you getting hurt are 1 in 10 or something, 1 in 50 or something like that. I didn't watch any of the ball games because they're not exciting to me. I wanted to watch the New Year's Day Rose Bowl parade. Couldn't even do that. So I think the games were watered down mainly because there's no people in the stands. There's no excitement. The kids, of course, are excited. They travel around the country. They can go to a bowl game and then go back home. So I don't look at it as being very important at all. The only thing that matters to me is the 4 teams that are playing for the championship.
And that's the thing is essentially, we're in this situation where, the expansion of the college football playoff, it continues to be a conversation. You and I talk about it a lot. I've talked about it for a while here on the show, and I just don't see how we can continue with 4, especially if Florida's getting better, if Texas A&M is getting better, if, you're going to have your Alabamas and your Clemsons and your Ohio States, and you got a better Florida and you got a better Texas A&M and maybe even a Georgia, and then, you have some other teams stepping up. If Cincinnati and UCF and teams like that continue to go undefeated. Listen, I was at the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl in Atlanta, Georgia. I was there for the Georgia home game against Cincinnati. And the reality of it all to me is Cincinnati played a hell of a game. Georgia won the game by their kicker, Podlesny, tying the record long field goal in Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl history. So he gets that at the end. They win the game in the closing, 3 seconds of the game, and everybody wants to go, well, the SEC is better than the American. We told you so. Look at what we did, blah, blah, blah. It took the entire game in the last few seconds to win. It took everything Georgia had to win that game. Literally everything Georgia could muster up to win that game. And I credit them, and Cincinnati played terrible up against Georgia on that last run by JT Daniel. They were awful against him. They allowed him to go 5 for 5 on that final drive to open it up before he had 2 incompletions. But the reality to me is, as we look at things, the college football playoff has to expand. If Cincinnati's going to do what they do, and UCF's worst year is going to be, well above 500, if we continue to look at these things, then there has to be an expansion of the playoff because of the fact that, the committee might not care about Cincinnati. They might not care about UCF. They might not care about Houston. But when Texas A&M's putting up a stink, and, Florida and Oklahoma and, the Oregons of the world or the Utahs of the world, they're going to have to listen to them, and that's inadvertently going to help out the American Athletic Conference. I just don't know how we do it with 4 anymore because it doesn't seem fair. It doesn't seem right. And in a year where, granted, Ohio State beat Clemson, and I give them credit for that, Ohio State was also, there was a bunch of rules everybody had to follow except for Ohio State. So I think that in order to make things fair and accessible to all, you have to be fair and accessible to all. I think that that's as clear as I can be.
Cincinnati is a very good team. I watched maybe almost a half of that game, and they gave Georgia all they had. But you also got Kirby Smart, who was on the other side the other sideline there, and he's no dummy. So he knew what he was doing, and he knew what he was getting into because Cincinnati played real fast. And if they can play real fast, and Kirby's saying, "Damn, these guys play fast. They play about as fast as we do." So right then and there, he knew he was in for a real barn burner. So congrats to Cincinnati and all these teams that are just around the peripheral looking in. I'm not sure what the answer is, Daniel, but we debate it every time we talk. Should it be 6 games, 6 teams, 8 teams? You know, what's the answer? There's really no answer. You know, you can debate it all you want, and even the Pac-12 over there are never going to. For some reason, they're the redheaded stepchilds over there. They don't get any respect over there, except maybe for Oregon. And Oregon got beat again. So
yeah,
that would be the 5th conference coming in there, and then the AAA would be the 6th conference. So you know, if you want to have 6 teams in a round robin like that, I guess that's fair.
That coming from PJ Papa Joe here with us this morning. Papa Joe, I appreciate everything. Got to all of the topics that we were looking to get to today. Any final note on your minds as we, pardon me, hop out of here as we get set for the NFL expanded playoffs with an extra team on each side, as well as we get set for the college football championship game. Any final notes on your mind that we didn't get to today?
The NFL playoffs is going to be fun to watch. There are an awful lot of good football teams. And the one football team that I keep looking at and reading about and watching is Buffalo. Buffalo is going to cause an awful lot of problems, matchup problems for these guys. Josh Allen is a stud. I don't know why he was not thought of as much as he is right now, because he can play. I mean, he got a hell of an arm. He can play, period. I look at Baltimore Ravens. You know, I'm not sure what they're going to do. It's not going to be Lamar Jackson game. It's probably going to be if they can roll through 400 yards of rushing the way they did last week. They're going to be tough to watch too. I like Tennessee with Derrick Henry. I mean, the guy is an absolute beast. How someone that big can be that fast boggles my mind. And I wish him luck. I love Tennessee. Of course, my team. My team is the Packers. I think the Packers have got the most valuable player in the league, Aaron Rodgers. There should be no question about that. No other player should come up for consideration but Aaron Rodgers. He's done it all. He did it his way, and he did it his coach's way. And Green Bay is going to look that good for it. So I look for maybe Kansas City and Green Bay in the final. I like Drew Brees and New Orleans. He's an amazing player, amazing guy. I mean, look at him and Rodgers and Brady are old guys. Let's face it, old guys, and they're making plays all over the place. Brady somehow throws for 40 touchdown passes in a team that he just met. I mean, how do you do something like that? So, but anyway, it's going to be fun to watch. But I'm looking at as my final before we just leave is my final would be Green Bay against Kansas City.
Fair enough. That coming from Papa Joe. The two teams that will be off in the first round, the only teams off in the first round as the new NFL playoffs have the number 1 seed in a bye, not the number 2 anymore. They have to play that first week. So, and that makes the wild card ever more eventful and ever more meaningful, and I think gets a lot more people to watch. With that being stated, Papa Joe, I want to thank you for everything you brought to the show today. A concise conversation about the world of sports with clear points and factual statements and thoughtful opinions. I would love for this to be real life in the world of sports everywhere, and maybe you and I should be running the college football playoff. But in the meantime, I hope that you continue running the Sunshine State well and doing all that you can to enjoy your life and have fun. I'm happy to have you here as always. I love you tremendously, and I look forward to the opportunity of getting to sit at the table and have some Sunday sauce, hopefully very soon.
Okay, Daniel. Thank you. Have a good show.
Take care. That coming from Papa Joe once again, where sports meets life on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. We'll take a step aside for a fast break. When we come back, for the first time ever, the Wizard is coming to Wake Up Call. Walt the Wizard Williams of Maryland history and the NBA joins us next, right after this fast break.
Avicoli's Restaurant, located right at the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road, is proud to be your local neighbor, growing with you for over 20 years. We're open 7 days a week for lunch, dinner, and drinks. For takeout, delivery, or catering, call us at 315-622-5100. When you order online and use our promo code ABS10, you will save 10% on your online purchase at myavicolis.com. And make sure to join us monthly for our live on-site broadcasts centered around Liverpool athletics. Avicoli's, your local, trusted neighbor right at the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road.
Having peace of mind when you're out of town that your furry-loving friend is safe and sound means taking them to Canine Campground, because we all know that when it comes to the love of our pets, it goes well beyond the call of duty to make sure they're safe and sound. Right, Lily? So take a ride to 242 Johnson Street in East Syracuse, New York, and see Canine Campground and where your dog will be staying, in the classic cabin, the executive cabin, the grand cabin, or of course the luxury cabin, because if you know Lily, you know she loves luxury. Now you don't have to wait to the last minute to find a family member or a friend that'll take your dog for a few days. Call Canine Campground at 315-299-4013. That's 315-299-4013. Their drop-off and pickup times are Monday through Sunday. Check K9campground.com for more information. That's the letter K, the number 9, and campground spelled with a K.com. K9campground.com.
When you're going out of town, bring your dog to Canine Campground.
Trapper's Pizza Pub, located on 5950 Butternut Drive in East Syracuse. Right off of Bridge Street is your local community supporter right around the corner. Join us on site at Trapper's Pizza Pub for our live monthly broadcast supporting Central New York student athletes and their sports programs. Call 315-438-4444 for more information. And find us on Facebook and Instagram at Trapper's Pizza Pub. Trapper's Pizza Pub, your local community supporter right around the corner.